in Gatlinburg, played for at Wiley Shop. Wiley Oakley had a shop down there. You heard of Wiley Oakley, I'm sure. And he had a shop, and we got to play, and me and Clyde Maples, Fred Maples, and Harvey Oakley, and a bunch of us got to play, and Shorty Reagan. We got to play, and then we'd play for the tourists. And Wiley'd go up to Mountain View Hotel and tell them when we're going to play, and here'd come a whole crowd down there, and we'd get in there and play, and they'd pitch nickels and dimes, pennies at us. And we played for years for Wiley Oakley down there. And then Grady built a square dance, and we started playing there.
What did Wiley sell at his shop?
Old novelties of all kinds. Shuck dolls, anything, neckties, homespun neckties, you know, and stuff like that.
Was he a good businessman?
Well, his wife done most of it, and Wiley's directing. He was an old mountain guide. He guided a lot of people through the mountains, you know. And he'd been up on the Mountain LeConte and took a group up there. He'd hike with them, you know, had him a walking stick, wore a big black hat, and redbird feather in it, and boots with the socks turned down over his boots. And he took a group up to Mount LeConte, and I think they stayed overnight or something. Anyway, while they was up there, he took some potatoes out there and buried them under a balsam tree. And next group he took over there, he told me he was going out there and get some balsam taters. And somebody went along with him to see, you know, if he did. And he dug up balsam taters out from under that balsam tree. Yeah, they thought it was really balsam taters.
Wiley was a pretty good guy, wasn't he? He was pretty much
one of the best. He was a second father to me.
He was?
He sure was.
Now, he played and sang, too, and he told stories.
He told stories all the time. I never knowed him by singing any, but he'd always tell. We went one time we was invited to the National Folk Festival in Washington, D.C. Me and Harvey, that was way back before I was married, for the war. And me and his son Harvey and Louis Maples, my nephew, he played the banjo and I played fiddle and Harvey the guitar. Went to Washington, D.C. for the National Folk Festival. Was up there for about a week. And they put us up in a hotel, paid us good, and then we got to go up our transportation paid and everything.
What did Wiley do?
Wiley told stories. He'd get out there and tell stories.
What kind of stories would he tell?
Well, he'd tell that about the cowboy, and you know hits on your
tape.
Yeah, he'd tell that, and he just told all kinds of things, you know.
About finding a man caught in a bear trap, or catching a bear.
Well, he was some character, I tell you. People loved him. All the people loved Wiley Oakley.
Why?
I don't know. He just tended his own business and just guided tourists. And he'd go to church down there where the First Baptist, they're tearing it down now, got it tore down. First Baptist Church there in Gatlinburg.
Did he amuse people? Did he make people feel good?
He sure did, because everybody loved him. I remember one time down there, he'd do little old funny things, say little funny things. I was down on the sidewalk with him, we were standing talking, you know, and some woman come walking down the road. And he thought he knew her. And she passed us. He just arrived back and said, "Well, I see you back." She just turned around and gave him a dirty look. He said, "I thought I knowed her." He do things like that, you know. He'd tell. I remember one time at the same time we went to Washington, D.C., coming back on the Blue Ridge Mountain. We drove out the Blue Ridge Mountain a ways, but the taxi driver drove us up there and back, you know. And he had a ball on the back of his neck, and he was giving trouble all the time we was up there. We got out on that Blue Ridge Mountain, And I operated on him, took it, got that ball out of there, and he'd get Lewis. Lewis wasn't used to, he was a young kid, played banjo with us. He'd get Lewis with a hand up on Washington D. He said, now the blue light's on, let's go. He'd run with Lewis across the street. And
you mean Lewis didn't know how to cross the street?
Yeah, he knowed how to cross the street. He's afraid Wiley's afraid he'd get run over, and he just give him with the hand, take him. And Wiley was tired of walking on that concrete, used to walking in the mountains on soft dirt and everything. And his feet was killing him. And that grass looked awful tempting to him, So he just got out, went to walking in that grass, and he hadn't took over 2 or 3 steps till a policeman had him with the arm. And he said, didn't you see that sign back there? Keep off of the grass. He said, I seen it, but said I couldn't read it. He said, I'm from the mountains, and give him a story about the mountains, and if he come down here, he'd take him a guide trip and everything, and he talked him out of it. He didn't know nothing about it, He could find him for out walking on that grass.
Wiley was pleading with him to let him walk on the grass.
Yeah, Wiley told him he'd come down here and he'd take him a guide trip, through the mountains.